The trans football team battering the women's team in Australia. You might have heard my rant about it.
What a surprise. What a surprise.
Yeah.
Here we go. No, the reality, you're brilliant rant, and well done. You're entitled to rant about these sort of things. Respect is always key, but it's respect for all people in the conversation. The reason certain sports divide it between those who have sort of physical strength and those who have a different physical strength is exactly that.
Yeah.
So if you introduce people who have a bigger physical strength, of course they're going to win.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, and I totally understand you need to have respect for everybody in the conversation, but it does also mean respect for the female athletes who are physically less able, or less strong rather, not able, on that sort of basis. If they all want to play darts, that's fantastic. If it's football or lifting weights or whatever it is, it's unfair.
I don't care what it is. If so far as it's a sport, men and women, that is the end of the conversation. It doesn't need to be darts or anything else, because there'll always be a physical difference. I despise this argument that actually it should be based on weight and testosterone levels and hormone levels and all of that, because then you can have a woman that's extraordinary in the women's category, but then she might be pushed into the men's category because she might be a medium or below an average or below average performer for the men's category, which is just strange. Like, why are you putting you're falsifying and putting limits to men and women's abilities in sports? And I think that's ludicrous. Just to what? To please like 10 people?
No, it's crazy.
The world has gone utterly mad. And actually, I said to you last time I was on here, I'd like to bang my head against a brick wall. So I printed one out, right? And I'm actually going to bang my head against a brick wall. Because let me tell you something. This world has gone mad. Of course, men should not be putting a skirt on and competing in a women's tennis match. You know what? One of the most
That's horrifying.
One of the most woke tennis...
Dangling? Can you imagine a man in a skirt playing tennis?
It's ridiculous. Listen, let me give you a reverse example, OK? I host a tennis podcast, rock and roll tennis, for any of you guys who want to tune in. But listen, Serena Williams...
How do you find out?
Listen to it.
Don't pay the licence fee. Don't pay it. Don't pay that fee, whatever it was.
Serena Williams,
yes,
who most people recognise as possibly the best women's tennis player ever, many people recognise that her power was almost that of a man. But when John McEnroe, a few years ago, said if she was playing in a men's game, she wouldn't beat any man in the top 800, she lambasted him, OK? It's a kind of similar sort of thing. Women, as you said, Esther, women in women's sports, men in men's sports. End of story.
But look at the mischief, and this is the whole reason it was set up in that sort of difference. And they say, but it's also about respect. Just to put a bit of balance on it. I don't mind people whatever they want to do. If they identify as a woman, let them identify as a woman. But there is a difference in terms of sport and so on and so forth. And I think respect involves respect for everybody in the conversation.
Yeah, there's no rules in the Premier League or anywhere in the English Football Association. There's no rules saying that women cannot play with the men. Women can play with the men. The reason there's no women playing with the men is because they're not good enough to get into any of those teams. In the same way, I'm not playing in the Premier League because I'm not good enough. It's the same. But there are rules in women's football that men cannot play because we are stronger. If you go in a tackle, a 50-50, man versus woman, the woman is going to get injured.
And this is why you had the differences introduced in the first place. This is why you introduced the difference between biological sexes that originally sort of started. And without being inflammatory in terms of the language, look at the differences. If sport didn't matter about those physical differences, then you just have, I say, this is why darts may be slightly different and so on and so forth, or snooker, you can do that sort of thing. But things like Formula One driving, when they encourage everybody, if it's skill-based, that makes sense. Well, but where there's an unfair physical advantage, it's rather like heavyweights in boxing or bantamweights and so on and so forth. You try and divide it up on that sort of basis. But I do want a system where they said the trouble, and every time we discuss this, it becomes so inflammatory. We need to make sure there is respect for everybody, but work out the reasons there are the rules there in the first place.
I don't even agree with the whole, even if you can't see physical differences, then don't segregate, because it's about the integrity of female sports. So it's not just about, okay, darts, you don't have that much physical differences between men and women, so you should be able to compete against each other. It's the integrity of the sport. If it's a female sport oriented towards females, it should only have females. But end of. I don't care whether, men and women would likely perform on the same level. Women have fought so hard to actually be recognised. I say this publicly, I don't watch women's football because it's terrible. It's god-awful. That being said, you have to protect the integrity of the sport. But there are many women that have fought very hard to be given attention.
But Esther, as I said earlier, it's women who are going to be the ones outcrying now and saying, how dare we speak about trans women and stop them from playing in sport? You know what I mean?
It's mad women,
It's mad women. But anyway,